Hey, big boy. How'd you like to get to know me on a more intimate level? Well, actually, I appreciate that you've taken an interest in me, but I'm not into men and I don't feel that way. Hey, big boy. I can assure you, I'm gonna make you mine. Hey, everybody, it's Brain44. Welcome to the Downloadable Brain Podcast, where each and every day I love the sound of my voice just a little bit less, but somehow I always show up to rock. We got an interesting topic for today's discussion. I'm going to discuss some different forms of psychological abuse, how it can become serious and even somewhat dangerous towards others depending on how severe the abuse is and how far the perpetrator is willing to go. So how did you guys like that intro? Because even though I'm not into dudes, I would have no problem like befriending gay people. But when a person tries to gaslight you and manipulating you into wanting them, it doesn't matter if they're gay or not. That's just psychological warfare, and it's a form of very skilled abuse, and it doesn't work. If you don't like somebody and you're not into them, that's just the way it is. And some people get really aggressive with these psychological behaviors, and it can become somewhat dangerous if you let it. So you have to know like where to draw the line and say, hey, wait a minute, this type of thing isn't okay, it's not normal, and you have to call judgment. For example, somebody like myself being on the internet, if the wrong person gets a hold of my personal information, it can become dangerous if and when it leads towards humiliation, smear campaigns, and even invasion of privacy or stalking, which would be considered illegal. Now that that's out of the way, let's talk about the psychological abuse. It's one thing if like somebody thinks they can try and manipulate you into wanting them, but it makes no difference about sexuality. It has nothing to do with being gay or being stoned off of the punani. Because I know a lot of guys can get stoned off the punani. Sometimes you just look at a beautiful woman and you want to get to know her, but you can't be stoned off the punani because that will come back to bite you in the ass. I'm going to talk about DARVO, DARVO. DARVO is a form of manipulative control that is used to avoid taking responsibility for harmful behavior towards others. It happens when the perpetrator is confronted by their behavior, either by the victim or by those supporting the victim. Some tactics they will use include denying any wrongdoing has occurred at all, and next they will go on the offensive, attacking the victim and anyone trying to call them out, usually resulting in making false accusations. And the most damaging form of manipulative control is when they reverse the role, so they go from being the aggressor and the abuser to declaring themselves as the actual victim. And so they flip the narrative so that the abused person becomes the villain. Sometimes it's just easy to want to believe a person when they say something really horrific about somebody. Other times it may be telling other people lies about a person, stalking them, abusing them, slandering them, destroying their reputation, convincing others to go against their target. In reality, they are the ones who have done these things to intentionally destroy a person and violate that person's rights by overstepping personal boundaries, destroying their reputation, and pretty much breaking the law. Because to do those things is not exactly legal, but the DARVO mindset of the aggressor convinces everybody around them that the crimes they are responsible for is actually the person who they are choosing to commit the crime against. That's a very dangerous form of manipulation. People who can see and recognize it should probably tell the person to either get some help for their psychological issues, or at least get somebody involved who can intervene and put a stop towards the abusive tactics. How does DARVO relate to gaslighting? Gaslighting is a form of psychological abuse where the perpetrator manipulates the victim into doubting their own memories, perceptions, or sanity. And this is often done through lies, distortion, withholding information in order to create doubt and attack their credibility. Through gaslighting, the perpetrator is able to control the victim by manipulating their sense of trust. DARVO slightly differs from coercive behavior, which is a pattern of abusive conduct using fear, intimidation, or pressure to control another person. It could include physical violence, emotional abuse, financial control, and other forms of abuse, while DARVO focuses more specifically on manipulating the victim's perception of events. This can make it harder to identify and address, as victims may not understand that they are being manipulated. But hey, if you can combine both, it makes all the makings of an emotional basket case. Somebody very reckless and unpredictable. How does narcissism relate to DARVO? Narcissism is a personality disorder characterized by an excessive sense of self-importance, lack of empathy, and this need for validation. Those displaying narcissistic traits often use DARVO as a way to maintain their sense of superiority and entirely avoid taking accountability for their actions. So by attacking the victim and reversing the blame, they can maintain that deception of being a victim themselves, reinforcing their sense of entitlement and superiority. Why is it important to understand DARVO? The abuser will not accept responsibility for their behavior, nor will they change it. The relationship fails and the victim believes that it is their fault. They find it very difficult, if not impossible, to leave, believing themselves to be unlovable, so they remain trapped in a toxic relationship. Victims may also suffer trauma-related symptoms such as depression, anxiety, and panic attacks. The effect on the victim's well-being or any children from the relationship is devastating and often long-lasting. Understanding DARVO and its relationship to gaslighting and coercive and controlling behavior is essential for victims of domestic abuse and for those supporting them. By recognizing the patterns of manipulation that the perpetrator uses, victims can gain a better understanding of what is happening to them, and they can work to protect themselves against further harm. So I don't know how you rock. If anybody out there is experiencing this, you could potentially hire a bodyguard if you have the resources to do that. If not, I guess you could file a restraining order on the abuser. Do whatever you can to collect evidence of the ongoing abuse, and make sure to tell somebody if it is happening to you or if you know somebody else that it is happening to. So in my case, I've had these weirdos like take my cell phone and add it to group chats against my will, when I never gave anybody my personal number at all. And I have a pretty good idea of who the perpetrator is, who's been doing this. And I know the reason for them doing it. It's because they want to act like they can do no wrong by shifting the dynamic of being a criminal onto me and convincing others that somehow I need to be judged for their crimes. And it's wrong and disgusting. It's downright stalking, and I do call judgment on that person, whoever they are. I don't know how you're going to be judged. Maybe there's a lot of corruption around you and people reward you for your very bad behavior. But maybe a lightning bolt will come down from the heavens and just blast you. I don't know, whatever you guys choose to believe in. Let me know how you rock. I'm going to end it out there. But be sure to recognize and understand the psychological abuse of DARVO and how criminals often use it to shift accountability and avoid being held accountable for their actual actions. Have a good one, everybody.